Thank you for tuning in to The Truth with Trinity, and I am your host, Trinity. And if this is your first time tuning into the podcast, I'd like to send you a warm welcome. Here I talk about issues that happen within the Black community, hopefully for some resolution or at least some food for thought to go about your daily way. So, without further ado, I'd like to jump into this episode's topic, which is why Black men find difficulty in running their home, or why Black men find difficulty in becoming head of household. As I'm making these episodes, I noticed that, when I make episodes about, men and what a lot of Black men could do better in the homes, and, in regards to Black women, they always, not always, but some, listeners revert back to saying, hey, this is a way of Black women not taking accountability. I have stated before and I'll state again, if you would like to hear suggestions that I'm making towards Black women about how they can become better Black women, I have amount of episodes that you can listen to that, reference solely to Black women. Also, for the Black man to ever rise to his natural state, every time situations are brought up to the Black man, he cannot revert always back to Black women. That's not a masculine trait. It's one thing for us to say as a people, yes, Black women do need to be held accountable for how they dress, how they act, as far as, how they disrespect their bodies, the way they raise their children. That's one aspect. Yes, Black women do need to be held accountable for their actions, okay? But it's one thing for Black men to make a habit out of every time someone says something to them, they have to shuffle it back towards women. Okay, so let me continue with this episode. Quite often, we hear that many Black men state that they can't run or be in charge of their home because of a Black woman who wants to overpower him. How many times have we heard that, right? Or that Black women want to use Black men as an excuse to why they fail at motherhood, or when as Black women, they are frowned upon when they do a countless amount of things that are unladylike, or the failure of the Black children, which, Black women take half of the responsibility of the children, the child rearing part, and they need to take responsibility for how they carry themselves or lack thereof, at home and abroad, and all those things that go with being a woman. So, yes. Many Black men will quote Bible verses verbatim, word for word, how women come from a man's rib and how God made man head over the land and women. Even if these same men have never read the Bible for anything else, they sure can spit out what God told the woman about how a man is. Okay, so yeah, you hear that a lot. So this is coming from guys that have never picked up the Bible in their life, but they can tell you word from word with their eyes closed about how man is over woman, okay? Yet many men, especially today's Black man, has become very forgetful in the role that God told him to play in his responsibilities. When one mentions the role, duty, and responsibility to the average Black man out of the same Bible that just a few seconds ago he was excited to quote what God said to women, they then become quite quiet or switch the topic. Okay, so the same guys that just a second ago was quoting all this about men being head over women, a lot of Black men become very quiet, okay, or want to switch the topic when it discusses what God told the man, what he was responsible for, though. Okay? Many Black men will also use excuses such as Black women always want to blame a man, Black women won't accept responsibility for their own actions, or the frequent excuse on how the feminist movement ruined the Black man's chance to re-enter the home as a man. Okay, so when it's brought up in the Bible how God told man that he was accountable for woman, when it's brought up in the Bible how God told man that he should work by the sweat of his brow for a woman, a lot of the average black men get quiet and want to switch the topic. But they're quick to say how black women should be submissive to a man, black women should follow a man's lead. Black men, I find, not all of them, but they're quick to quote these things as an ego boost as a man, but they don't want to follow the laws of God when it comes to their duty and their sweat, blood, and tears of not just calling themselves a man, but what it takes to be a man out here, versus just quoting some Bible verses that a woman should follow without following his part, which I find that to be a great deal of a problem. But in this episode, I'd like to discuss the reasoning behind why black men lack the ability to be head of home. Okay, and why, black women and black men butt heads. We could talk about the Willie Lynch, and, we could talk about the role reversal, and, how women was put out there on the forefront and men were taught to be timid and shy, and how, that's went through our generational bloodlines. But I would like to talk about some other things, such as number one, the black man lacks counsel, guidance, and spirituality from God. And I put this as number one. Okay, because the black man has the right to want to exercise his God-given authority, but he cannot do so without God. I find a lot of black men, they are saying they're a God, which there's nothing wrong with the black man saying that, but black men have become now lovers of themselves to the point where they're confused. They're not the number one God. They're not the God, the creator. They're not the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Okay, so it's one thing to call yourself a God, and how can a black man shirk his responsibilities and call himself a God no more than a black woman who parades herself naked on the street call herself a queen? So we have two problems here. Okay, also, so if God was talking to the black man, so if the black man would accept counsel, guidance, and spirituality from God, God would be telling the black man that they are responsible for the condition of their women and children. Okay, because I believe that's part of a main reason why black women don't take black men seriously. They can't. How can you take a man seriously barking orders at you, but when the chips fall to the ground, they pass the bat to you to go to the door. If someone's trying to break in the house, they pass the bat to the woman, metaphorically speaking. So, on one hand, we have black women that are out of sync. They're so eager to take responsibility because most black women have never had a black man in the picture to take responsibility and do it 365 days of the year. How can a man know if he is right or wrong if he won't listen to the voice of God? Okay, so how can a black man have any type of consciousness to his doings if he does not listen or hearken to the voice of God? How will a man know if his leadership has a proper or improper balance if he will not listen to God? Okay? How can the black man complain that the black woman won't listen or take instructions from him when the black man himself thinks that he doesn't have to take instructions from God? Where does the black man get his strength to fight temptation, stay on the right course, or to go the distance if he has no spiritual connection with God? Because, a lot of houses fall and are divided. The black woman, it's not enough if the black woman has spirituality. So let's cross out that you have a black woman that's loose, likes to go to the bar, and likes to travel the streets. If you do have a black woman that does get her spiritual nourishment from God, okay, and then you have a man that is not on the same balance, by a woman not being able to dictate to a man, it's up to that man to already have a relationship with God. Okay. Also, how would the black man differentiate between using a woman as a slave or abuse, or between his rightful role if he has no discernment from God? And what I mean by that is, how as a man can you measure when you're going too far? Like when you're basically, a lot of guys want a submissive wife or woman, but how can you differentiate what the measure of you just being a man and wanting what you need in the house to make it run smoothly versus you going overboard and you abusing and dogging out your woman and mentally and physically abusing her, saying it's called you being a man when you're actually being abusive. And the only way you can get that balance, like I said, that improper or proper balance, is by having a relationship with God. So God, you can listen to the voice of God when you need to tell you when you're going too far with your women and children. But if not, what we have now is a lot of men saying, yeah, yeah, I'm going to be man, I'm going to be head, but I'm going to dog out women, I'm going to abuse them, I'm going to do whatever I want. But that's called me being a man, and it's not, it's called being a woman abuser. Versus having the balance, that you require things, certain things of a woman, but you have the balance to know when you're going overboard, trying to use someone, misusing someone, versus being a man. How can the black man teach his woman that teaches his kids if he lacks education from God? The black man has difficulty in knowing the difference between leisure time and being serious. I find that a lot. A lot of black women complain about that. That black men have a hard time figuring out when the playtime is over and when to be serious and which one. Okay, black males must be taught from a young age the severity and the consequences of refusing education or getting into trouble. Okay, so a lot of black men, just like a lot of black women, they think they can just show their body and their breast and get a man. I find that with a lot of black men have been taught as well that they can just be good in the bedroom physically, and that's all that it takes to be a man. They're not taught from a young boy that they need to get their education. They need to go off to college. They need to at least finish with high school. They need to get into some type of trade or some type of business. They need to own their own business, whatever it takes, because you cannot be head of a household by just going off from your parents' house to go live with a woman. The chances of it being a successful family is very slim, and the respect level that a woman will show you is very slim. It's not about every woman being a gold digger. A lot of black men need to stop telling themselves that. Black men who have not graduated from school, have never did anything with their life, back and forth in between jail, cannot get anything in their name, and just saying that all women are gold diggers just because they're asking for basic level things and necessities that every grown up should have. So our black boys need to be taught this, that it takes more than just the size of your genitalia and to go sell some crack on the street. No, it takes for you to go get an education at least and have something to offer for yourself. So even if you don't have a woman, and to be able to bring something to the table if you do want to build a family and you do want to be head over a house. Okay? Many black men believe they should automatically become head of a home without being prepared. Okay? We have that a lot going on. I'm not saying every black man is like this, but a lot, are complaining about things that they haven't been taught the truth about as well. So we have a lot of black women who haven't been taught proper knowledge on how to, keep a man comfortable in a home. But we have a lot of black men who are surprised when it's in a black woman, it's in a woman's nature, period, regardless of race, of when things aren't right and things aren't stable. And a lot of black men haven't had the knowledge of how to make things stable in a home so that the black woman isn't complaining anyway. Many black men feel they should live off of other women, then dictate within her home, which usually ends in failure. Okay, so, we can talk about a lot of the black males that are raised from black women that have a mentality of a woman. They've been softened, but, they naturally know they're a man somehow. And they get with a woman from their mom's house and think that this woman is going to treat them like mom. Because there are a lot of black women paying the bills. And I think that needs to be another topic too, of how I think a lot of black men have, not all black men, but the black men that practice these things, they have an unrealistic expectation to think that they're going to run a house in a masculine manner, but yet send their woman out to work to pay all the bills. That's non-reality. No more than it's non-reality for a woman to think that she's going to talk to a man like a girl and that he's going to stay in the home. The two go hand in hand, and nothing brings the masculinity out of a woman more than her paying all the bills and have a man that she's only having sex with, and that's the only way he's showing his masculinity prowess. Let me continue. Not fully ready to settle down, yet expect their female partner to settle down. These kind of men usually um, think that they would like a old school minded woman while not possessing the mentality of an old school man. Okay, so we have a lot of of our brothers. They want a woman to settle down, but they're not ready to settle down. I find that a lot of black men, they want to go back and forth through time. And what I mean, go back and forth through time, once you've had your time to play around and party with as many women as you think that you want to, as far as when you get serious and start having children, those times are usually done with. Like you've cemented, like a concrete type of slab of rock, Plymouth rock, a big boulder, something that's long withstanding, at least, especially if you get married with a woman, she's thinking these things and has children with you. And a lot of times, guys, a lot of our brothers are going back into time. Once they make those cement decisions, they want to go back out there and play as if they're single, which nothing breaks down a household quicker than a man not having a job, him not being able to contribute financially, and for him to go back on his promises and want to go back through time and play around. Yet these type of guys usually complain that they want an old school woman. They want a woman that's submissive to them. They want a woman that when they cheat on them with other women, that she still sits in the house with the kids, while he's broke though. So these type of men, they usually don't have the money. Okay, I'm not saying that money will make a woman stay, but that security. Okay, that security and knowing the children are going to be taken care of. She's not going to have to worry about a home, because when we talk about old school families, since a lot of guys like to bring that up, so you had a woman back then that was faithful, that even if their man did go out in the streets, she knew that the house and the clothes and the food was being provided for, whether she worked or not. And that's what a lot of men are missing now. They want to talk about women competing with men, which is, that's not right. But they want to talk about women competing with men and them wanting to cheat as quickly as a man cheats and all these things. But men are very silent about their old school obligations. How were old school men, though? Old school men made sure that the food was on the table, that she had something to cook, that the bills were paid, and that she had a dress to put on. And so the children were fed. So, I think the two go hand in hand. Also, just as it's said that black women always get a pass for acting out, being masculine and promiscuous, as if it's just expected of black women on average. So, we've got a lot of black men complaining that black women get a pass. They don't want to accept accountability for their misbehavior. But so does it seem as if it is expected for black men to grow tired of his duties, hop from home to house, run away from fatherhood, allergic to commitment in marriage, and to continue to place his responsibilities on a woman's shoulders. So this seems like, black men are getting a pass for that. Like, it seems typical misbehavior for black men. So they're saying that black women seem like they're always getting a pass. So it seems like black men are always getting a pass at this too, like it's expected of them. The black man has the most difficult time distinguishing between the black women who had no choice but to pick up the slack a man left behind, and between black women who just wanted to be a man, as they generally say. And I think as black men, they like to lump all those women up together and say that every black woman just wants to be a man, when I believe that there should be a split decision, that there are some women that do want to be men, I guess, quote unquote. And then there's some women that had no choice but to pick up those reins or die out here or survive. Okay? When the reality is that today's black men would rather pacify themselves with the excuse of black women wanting to be men, to comfort themselves from the harsh reality that this epidemic of mentally ill black women who are raising feminine black males and masculine black females is present after the many decades that the black man has been gone from the home, left the home, found another home, would rather have fun, or had a pimp, stud, slave mentality to have multiple women, no money, and to travel between homes. Okay, so we can talk about now. Okay, so in 2021, yes, black women are primarily raising the men and they're coming up feminine, and the girls are coming up masculine and hating men, and they're abusing men. So what we have here is generational. So this generation now, we have women that have been abused by the black man for the last 30 years. So now we have black women that are fed up and they're abusing black men. So that's what you're seeing now. You're seeing a lot of black women disrespecting, cursing, abusing, molesting, raping, beating, shooting black men. Okay? But black men don't want to hear about their father's father. Okay? So it might not have been some of you, but the father's father. So this is now we're flipping back generations. Okay, and that's why it's important for us as black people to get this together, together now, because it's just going to keep going through a cyclical domino effect of just 10 years after 10 years, and we're just not going to get this thing together until we nip this thing in the bud, because that's what's happened. 30, 40 years ago, you have black men really abusing black women, and black men can act like they're oblivious to this or not, but you were the little boys back then 30, 40 years ago, and you seen the pain your mother went through and your grandmothers and stuff, and that's what happened. So we had a lot of black men abusing black women back then, and now we have black women abusing black men, and now we have black men running from the hills because this is something that their hands have created, and they don't want to admit that. Black men don't want to admit that the harsh treatment that they're getting from black women is as a direct result and indirect result from the hurt, pain, and abuse and trauma that black women have been suffering at the hands of the African American man in America for the last 30 to 50 years. Um, Also, as long as the black man refuses his God given instructions from the Most High, the black woman will remain mentally ill, and so shall it continue on toward the generations through his offspring. The black man must learn how to think 100 plus more years in advance, because many black men have a live for today mentality. They don't consider other black men or how his actions will affect his family 100 years from now, even when he is no longer living. And I want to stop. I don't like to compare black men with other races of men, but I want you to not take it out of context, but think about what I'm really saying. When they talk about their quote unquote founding fathers and Benjamin Franklin and George Washington, all these people, you know, um, they thought like 1,000 years ahead of time, because that was like, what, 600 years ago or something? 600 years ago? Well, maybe, about 500 years ago, but whatever. It was back then, right? And they thought about laws for their children to benefit. And I think because of slavery and the things that black men have went through and just surviving for themselves, they only think about their lives. The average black man only thinks about now. He doesn't think about his children. He doesn't think about how his grandchildren will eat. He doesn't think about the legacy that he's going to leave behind for his children. And if black men want to free themselves, they must think more than just about themselves. That will enable them to understand the reasoning behind why they need to stay in the house, why they need to be a father, why they can't just leave black women on their own and then just blame black women for being bitter. Once the black man starts to think linear and longevity wise of how his actions affect people 200 years from now, that's how you build legacies, kingdoms, and castles. We're not building castles now, but that's how you build societies. It's by the black man being their own founding fathers really. So let me continue, which is the most important part to consider. So the most important part to consider, black man, is what happens 100 to 200 years from now when you're no longer living. Okay? How your lineage is going to be, and what part are you going to play in them living better. Many black men are only preoccupied with their own survival, not caring about what happens to children's children, because many times that is how their own father treated or felt about them. So, many black men, their father didn't care about them or how they ate or how they was going to live when they grew up. Basically leaving them nothing to build from financially nor a legacy to live up to. Black men must live with their sons every day if possible to leave their sons a legacy. Your son is more likely to become an air pilot if you're an air pilot. Your son is more likely to become a doctor if you're one. Give your son an image to look up to, and that's very important. With the average black man nowadays, we got black men who are either showing their son the wrong way, things that are not going to benefit the black community, such as criminal activities, being a dope dealer, being mischievous, accumulating long jail sentences. So father did it, I'm going to do it. Or we have a group of young black males that have never had their father around, and any black men that are surrounding them, okay, they're imaging themselves off of that. So if they don't have father around, that's another way that black men are becoming destroyed too. So if there's guys that are not setting a great example for them, they're copying off of that too. So it might not have been their dad, there's somebody else that they're looking up to. And some black men are fortunate. They either have their biological father that is showing them a good example, or if they don't have their own biological father around, there is a strong male influence in their life, which is great. And I take my hats off to all the black men that are trying to show other black men positive examples. Much thank you to you. So those black men are fortunate enough to get some type of leadership that way. But my point is, though, what you are, your son is more likely to become. The black man cannot run a home only when he wants to. He cannot come and go because the actions do not represent stability. That happens a lot. I understand I can't explain because I'm not a man, okay? So I don't know. Much respect. I don't know what it feels to be a man, but, a lot of our black men, they are not built with the stability components to stay in there when it gets tough. A man, especially when we talk about husbands and stuff, they can't leave the home whenever they want for months and years at a time. It's just not going to work. Not even weeks at a time, and I find a lot of black men find that there's something wrong with that. Like, that's part of them being a man, and it's not. That's the opposite of them being a man, is call them copping out when the going gets tough. Especially if there's no abuse going on in the home. He just wants to go out into fantasy land. Like I said, that's some things that you can handle in your youth before you become a father and husband. Part of being a man is standing when you don't want to stand. The black man must stop playing around with the black woman. The black man must stop leaving everything to black women, then become upset when the multitudes of black women become confused and masculine in the process. If the black man refuses to get back in alignment with God, if he refuses to join brotherhood with each other, so I'm saying black men must stop killing each other. Okay, how are black women supposed to take you seriously? If you can't even take your own fellow brother's life seriously. Okay? If he continues to refuse his responsibility towards black women and children, he will continue to wander about until it is too late. Okay? It's been a pleasure talking with you all. That pretty much concludes this segment. If you're listening on YouTube and you'd like to leave a message on how things can get better with black men and black women, let me know what you think down in the comment section. I just want to say much love to all my black brothers out there. If you would like to leave me a message, a comment, or you would like to leave a financial contribution, you can at thetruthwithtrinity.com. You can also listen to my podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Anchor. And always remember, if you can't tell the truth with anybody else, you can with Trinity. Till next time, take care.